Hey guys, Scott here, and today I wanted to talk about something that I think the DBD community needs to work on overall, and it's basically their perception of the game's balance based on patches. And I think the problem is people just look at the game based solely on patches and not the overall direction that the game is going. They'll just see a patch note and a line in that patch note, go in a frenzy about it, say blah 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 OP, blah blah blah. They're just blank sided or whatever current side is benefiting from that patch, and they won't view it from a step back and look at why that's good for the game. The most recent thing is the whole anti-slugging thing. They're doing the whole base kit. You can pick yourself up off the ground now. I believe that's an idea to help the idea of slugging and make it easier in solo queue to not have to coordinate people getting you back up if you've been on the ground for a very long time. Obviously, the whole unbreakable change they've talked about is stupid, but I have no doubt they're not going to go through with that as it currently stands. But it does sort of jive with the whole argument I'm trying to make, which is people tend to just see a specific line from a patch note and then draw the conclusion that the devs are whatever side that, that currently benefits. And they refuse to look at the entire game of why, it's good that they're making that change. This is one of the only game communities I've been a part of where there can be like a universally unfun mechanic that the devs will try to remove, and then people will get mad that they remove it. So they did tunneling last patch where they, gave you the 10 seconds of borrowed time and 10 seconds of haste. And now this, not this patch, but the next thing they're trying is messing with slugging, because slugging and tunneling are both seen as universally unfun things. Even killers don't find it necessarily fun. I'm not saying every single person, but I think the vast majority, killers and survivors, would agree that having to tunnel people every match and stuff like that, it's not necessarily fun. So it's a negative mechanic in the game that should be addressed, right? But then when they try to address it, the killers just get upset, or the survivors get upset, depending on which side, again, is benefiting. And I just don't understand why people can't take a step back and view how they're trying to make the game in such a way that those mechanics are not required to win anymore. So they're trying to make the game in such a way to where you don't have to slug, or where you don't have to tunnel and stuff like that. And it may be a slow process. There may be steps and there may be patches in which they fix these things or remove these things, and the killer doesn't get enough to compensate for that. And that can totally happen. But over time, if you look at the patches, it tends to even itself out and put it back into a more balanced state. The problem is people only look at one patch at a time, and they just think, oh, that's it. They've just nerfed the hell out of killer. I can't slug anymore. The game's over. And I wish people could just take a step back and, view things more as a whole. And the whole thing with, like, I just don't get why people don't understand that removing the fun things, or removing the unfun mechanics of the game is something that needs to happen in order for those mechanics to not be required to win to begin with. And the thing is, I think we're closer to that than people give the game credit for. People still to this day think that you still have to tunnel to win and stuff like that. I think we are closest that we have ever been to that really not being necessary anymore. Like, yeah, if you're in a 4-man tournament or something like that for money or whatever, sure, you still have to do that pretty relentlessly. But that's like the same conversation as comparing Nurse to the other killers. It just doesn't matter to the rest of the actual game, because you're not playing in comp matches every match, and you're not, well, maybe you're going against Nurse every match. But the whole point is it's not really realistic for a normal match, even a high skill match. I'm not even talking about just like low MMR, mid MMR, whatever, as if MMR does anything, but even high MMR matches and stuff like that, you genuinely do not have to tunnel. I feel like I'm going to go on a separate rant right now about this. I'll do it for 30 seconds, but you truly do not have to tunnel. And the reason that people still do this is because they feel if they don't, that the game is going to go too fast, not realizing that while they're tunneling one guy and ignoring the rest of the entire team, that's why the game is going fast, because they're ignoring the rest of the team. The more you spread out your pressure, the slower you'll kill people, but the slower that the match will go as well. And I don't know, it's just anecdotal evidence for me. Like, I have a year's worth of VODs on my Twitch of me almost never tunneling and winning almost every single game. It's absolutely possible. And before people go, well, you play this game for a living, we don't have all the time. I don't actually play the game as much as people think I do. I play the game maybe 3 hours a day every other day. So like 12 hours a week, 12, 15 hours a week, maybe. Even if you have a 9-to-5 job, you can set aside 2 to 3 hours to play a game every day. I don't think that's really that good of an excuse. I don't have like half the hours of people like Ots or whatever. So I'm not even like pretending to be like some god tier player that has 1 billion hours in the game. I still have under 5,000 hours in the game, despite having played for 6 years, basically every day. I don't play as much as people think I do, and I'm still able to win almost every single match without tunneling because I understand that if you don't tunnel, you actually get to use your pain resonance or your eruption or call of brine. If you just tunnel one guy, you don't even get to use your game delay perks. The game doesn't even last long enough for you to do those things because you've just ignored everybody. I'm going on a whole separate tangent again about tunneling. The whole point is you don't actually have to do that stuff. And we're at a point in the game, I think, again, barring a couple of maps that are still broken, we're at a point in the game to where you can actually play in a decently wholesome way and still win if you're better than the other players you're going against. And I think the game does not get enough credit for that. I think the game is way more balanced than people actually think it is right now. And we're already at that point to where a lot of these unfun mechanics that people feel are required aren't quite as required anymore. And I don't think we're going to fully get there even for another year or two even. It might take a long time, but I just wish people would take a step back further and look at the entire game as a whole. Like, compare the balance of the game right now to even a couple years ago with old Dead Hard, old Decisive Strike, old Metal of Man. Like, there's so much broken shit that they have fixed and removed from the game. And we just have to take a step back and view things as a whole. I guess that's the main point of the whole video. Just view things as a whole. Try to give it some time. It can be frustrating to one side or the other, depending on which patch favors which. But usually it ends up balancing itself out. So have a little patience. See that they're trying to address the unfun mechanics in order to make you not have to do those unfun mechanics to feel like to win the game. So that's pretty much it. I feel like I'm talking in circles now, so I'm going to go. Thanks for watching. See ya.